We, the Bangla people, welcome you to our country. We are the lawful inhabitants of this peninsula for thousands of generations. We are part of this land on which we stand, part of the waters that flow in and around. We are part of the dreaming stories that are connected. The full awareness of oneness with the land and waters will ensure a future for the children of tomorrow. Ngaya Wanaguru Bangala Mirinya, Yura Damilbu. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome all to tonight's meeting. Our oath to Whyalla is that we, the Whyalla Council members, commit to serving the community of which we are a part and will work together diligently and collaboratively to create a prosperous future in which we all can share. In delivering our obituary notices, those who can or wish to stand for a moment, please. We acknowledge Brian Howard, Lorna Treacy, David Pope, Avis Collins, and Kevin Bishop. Thank you. Item 4, our attendance record. We have an apology from Councillor Todd. We have no leave of absence. Item 5, Council Member Executive Declarations 5.1, conflicts of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest they feel they should declare? Councillor Pond.
Yes, I have two conflicts. One with the community grants, which is 14.3.1. Two of the groups that have been put forward, I'm an executive on those groups, so I'll be leaving the room for those. And those groups being Plaza Youth and also the Little Athletics. And my second conflict is within the confidential items, item 132, because as previous Deputy Mayor, I have been named within that section and I left the room the first time.
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry. Just for the benefit of the minutes, which was you quoted 1.32, what item does that relate to?
Confidential items?
Yeah. Yeah. Which item within the confidential items?
132.
Yeah. Which relates to what subject matter?
A legal matter.
Yep.
Which the Deputy Mayor and the previous Deputy Mayor were mentioned in.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to get that for the purpose of the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, Deputy Mayor Border.
I'll declare a conflict for that same agenda item and we'll leave the room.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There are no further conflicts of interest. CEO.
Apologies, Mayor. Just before you move off that item, I want to declare that I've got a conflict of interest in relation to item 14.2.5 on tonight's agenda, which relates to the South Australian Remuneration Tribunal's determination in relation to local government CEO remuneration levels. And as a consequence, I will leave the room during discussion on that matter.
Thank you, CEO. 5.2, gifts and benefits. Does anybody have a gift or a benefit they need to declare? No, we all miss out again. Thank you. Item 6, the minutes of the previous meeting. 6.1, confirmation of the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday, the 28th of January. We have a recommendation there. Councillor Knox
Moving.
and Councillor Inglis seconding. We have a motion. Put in
I have a question.
yes, Councillor.
In relation to a letter from Mrs. Jane Lee, it was referred that the contents should be referred to the Department of Water and Energy. And we referred that to them on her behalf, or that's her thing?
I can't answer that, Councillor. I'll have to refer it for.
Just clarify which item that was again, councillor.
Mrs. Lee asked a question about some work out at one of the highway places with poles in the road. And we referred to the Department of Energy and Water. Did we refer the letter, or did we were telling her to?
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, I can confirm that we have contacted the resident and directed them to department, relevant department.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. We have a motion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7, matters adjourned or laid on the table. We have nil. Item 8, deputations. We have nil. 9, petitions. We have nil. 10, public question time. I understand we have nil. Item 10, item 11 rather, sorry. Council member activities. We have a number of activities there, and again, thank members. Opportunity briefly, if anybody wishes to elaborate on any of their activities. Councillor Pond.
I'd just like to say how heartwarming it was to attend the 80th birthday of Bedford. Fantastic services, credit to our community. Presentations were amazing, and it was just a really great morning, and very proud that we have a service like that in our community.
Thank you. And the amount of food they had there, they could have fed the whole of Whyalla. Right, if there's no further comments there. Item 12, presentations, we have nil. Item 13, committee reports, we have nil. Item 14, reports from council officers, 14.1. The Office of the Chief Executive, ordinary reports, 14.1.1. First item there, ALGA, call for nominations, motions. You will recall this was at our previous meeting. It's back for formality as to whether we have any particular motion that we would like to put up. I think I can say from experience last year, there are so many motions that go forward. Anything I can remember from last year is well and truly covered. I know there are a lot of motions that have gone up that the national body are still working on, but if anybody thinks we have a motion that we should be putting up, now's the opportunity. Otherwise, we take it as read. We have no nominations? In that case, would somebody care to move that we note the item with no further action? Councillor Knox?
Councillor Border.
Right, Councillor Border. Deputy Mayor Border.
Moving.
Seconded, Councillor Knox. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.1.2, the Chief Executive Officer's Action Report for February 2025. And I will refer to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. In the first instance, I'll just respond to any questions that may exist in relation to the written report on the agenda. And then once, if once I've dealt with any of those questions, I do want to provide councillors with a verbal update in relation to the airport upgrade. So just start with any questions in terms of the information presented in the agenda.
Any questions of Councillor Pond?
Just wondering if we are getting an update anytime soon on the RAP. Very interesting to see where you're at with that, whether it's been implemented, and if so, how much of that RAP's been implemented and what it's going to look like.
I'll provide a quick response through the Mayor. So we have submitted a draft RAP to Reconciliation Australia. We have received some feedback from Reconciliation Australia regarding just some questions and comments about what's included or not included in our draft RAP, which we're currently addressing. On balance, most of them were relatively administrative in nature. There was nothing substantive. So having now received that feedback, we'll go back to Reconciliation Australia and close that out. And at that time, that's the point where we'll then be able to consult with the council and the community about what's included in that RAP. So getting very close now. The process to and fro council and Reconciliation Australia, particularly over Christmas New Year period, unfortunately just did take a few extra months to close out.
Thank you.
Any further questions to the CEO? In that case, I'll refer back to the CEO.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide a verbal update regarding the airport runway upgrade. The information that I'm going to provide tonight is essentially a quick update in terms of the current state of play. Hereafter, from tonight onwards, we'll have a formal report on every council agenda so that you'll get a formal update, but the timing of the project didn't quite synchronise with our agenda release earlier late last week. So just over the last couple of months, council has now appointed a number of people to assist with the implementation of that project. So we've got Anthony Bray, who is in the room today. Anthony, if you can show your hand. Anthony Bray is a long-time Whyalla resident with high level of experience and expertise in terms of project management delivery. So Anthony has been appointed by council to be our key contact. Dr. Greg White, who assisted council through the tender specification and tender evaluation process as our subject management expert, has now been appointed as the project superintendent as well as subject matter expert. You councillors had the opportunity to get a briefing from Dr. White at a recent council meeting, so you will know that he is an acclaimed expert in all things airport runway related. Short version, Nick Stasi, instead of the full name, from Stasi Engineers, has been appointed by the project superintendent, Greg White, together with 3 other Whyalla-based residents as superintendent representatives. So Greg will lead that team, but with some on-site presence provided by Stasi Engineering. The project has now been kicked off. There's over the first week or two, there was a fair bit of discussion around finalising the contract between council and Fulton Hogan, getting an early works contract in place so that Fulton Hogan could commence doing some of the work, preceding us receiving, as a council, receiving a funding agreement between us and the state and federal government. So that funding agreement is still a work in progress. It's currently with Crown solicitors, hopefully to be finalised in a matter of days. And so we're pressing to get that funding agreement in hand. One of the first key considerations for the project team with the appointment of Fulton Hogan as the contractor was the mobilisation process, including where they might locate the mobile asphalt plants, the logistics in terms of supply and transport movements to and from the airport, relevant approvals, including development approval, and hand in hand with that, native vegetation clearance requirements. That ended up proving to be a little bit of a complex process because the native vegetation clearance requirements, given the scale of the mobile asphalt plant, is quite significant. And when we engage with native title people, they indicated that as a minimum we'd be looking at a 28-day timeframe before we could get approval. And short native vegetation, what did I say? Sorry, native title, my apologies. Native vegetation, thank you, Shay. We don't have 28 days to get in the project plan to be able to get that approval, so that we required to look at a number of alternate sites and pros and cons with each of them, and that was quite an extensive process. It's simple to say, but I just want to reassure or reaffirm for councillors that we don't have 28 days factored into the project plan. And with the contract that we've got in place, any delays to the contractor that essentially we incur from our end gives them both the opportunity to have delays at the end of the project and potentially also some financial consequences for council. We looked at multiple scenarios. Where we ended up landing, excuse the pun, was a site out at the industrial park, which already has native vegetation clearance on it. Looking at the logistics, there was also some merits in that site, both in terms of the land use is clearly for industrial or heavy use purposes. So the asphalt plant is in line with the intended land uses of that site. And it would mean that the truck movements that occur from the asphalt plant through to the airport is down Playford Avenue, onto Lincoln Highway, and then through the main gate of the airport. Many of the other alternatives that we looked at would have required an alternate truck route through other parts of our city on roads that are not designated as truck routes. And we also started to get a bit of pushback from Department of Transport and Infrastructure regarding large vehicle movements, either trying to cross over Lincoln Highway or potentially turning right on Lincoln Highway, etc. So where we've ended up landing is deemed to be the most suitable site. And just looking in Jodie's direction, because I didn't get a chance to ask before coming in the meeting, we now have development approval and native vegetation approval in hand, or that's still coming.
So we have DA approval for the airport upgrade itself.
Mm-hmm.
We no longer need a native vegetation clearance approval because we're not clearing any native vegetation, and a separate application for the mobile asphalt plant at the industrial estate's underway.
Yep. Okay, so that took a little bit of work to try and to land that. Excuse the pun again. I won't apologise anymore, but I like talking about landing the plane. Or things like crib rooms, ablution blocks, parking, etc., will all occur to the south of the general aviation hangar in the area that's currently used essentially as a large car park area. Engagement with key stakeholders has commenced, both in terms of emergency services, the direct users of the airport, so contractors and high users of the airport, general aviators. We have sent out letters to the residents in the Malakwana area. Our experience of late with Australia Post is, whilst you'd expect that getting a letter from one side of town to the other side should only be 2 or 3 business days, our most recent experience is that sometimes it takes a week. So we wanted to contact the Malakwana residents as probably the most affected parties in the first instance, before we start broader engagement or consultation and information sharing. So letters have gone out, and we will be having 2 drop-in sessions on the 25th and 27th of February, so next week. And other works are progressing. It's actually pleasing to see that works have already been mobilised. So any councillors have been out to Industry Drive over recent days will see that some of the earthworks is underway out of that site to start preparing for the hard stand for the asphalt plant. And it is also pleasing that in choosing that location, that hard stand will actually value add to that site. So for future potential use of that site or sale or disposal of that site, we will have an improved site as a virtue of that. As I've mentioned in passing, we are still awaiting the funding agreement. So we still have a risk at play at present that where we've let a contract, we're starting to spend money, and our money will only, the council's money will only go so far. So we are pursuing the state government now on a day-to-day basis, saying we need to finalise that contract. So just raising that as a risk, but one that we believe we can manage. And community engagement, as I just mentioned, we will commence shortly. Just stating the obvious before I open up for questions, because I know the first couple of questions. In terms of community engagement, we're mindful that the obvious questions from the community will be around the number of truck movements, noting that a lot of them will be at night time, the associated noise, dust, and potential smell associated with the transportation of asphalt. So we are mindful that those are the things that we will get questions about. When we start the broader community engagement, we'll have as we always do now with our major projects, a frequently asked questions. So we'll put all those questions and have answers already ready to provide. And when inquiries start coming in through one form or another, we'll obviously redirect people to look at that question and answer form on our website, which hopefully will cover off most of those issues. Key thing is that we are using a designated truck route. And so the road is, it's been declared for use by trucks. We are mindful that there will be truck movements at night time, but we don't think that dust from the trucks and the asphalt will necessarily be a particular challenge. There will also be dust from the airport and from Industry Drive. So depending on which way the wind is blowing on any given day, we invariably will get some complaints about dust, but the contractor obviously is clear in terms of understanding that dust suppression and management is a key expectation for this contract. So with that update, I'll now open up for questions, and just in doing so reaffirm that hereafter you'll get formal reports on future council agendas as opposed to just a verbal update. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Anybody have any questions of the CEO? Councillor Knox.
Just wondering whether the increased cartage that you have with the bitumen will add to the contract costs.
The answer is no, it will not.
Any other questions? In that case, I'll thank the CEO for his verbal update and certainly look forward to our monthly reports. We have a recommendation. Councillor Pond.
Moving.
And do I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Border.
Seconding.
Yours is the only name that stayed up. The others all disappeared. We have a recommendation moved and seconded. I put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.1.3. Antisocial behaviour in public places. In the first instance, I'll refer this to the CEO.
CEO, I'm just going to excuse myself. Conflict.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, just in doing so.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Campbell, I didn't see you sneak in there earlier. You're declaring a conflict of interest. On what basis are you declaring that conflict of interest?
I'm a police prosecutor, and I'm unable to do this due to my conflict with my other work.
Thank you, councillor. Deputy Mayor Border.
I'm maybe ahead of schedule, but happy to move the motion and would like to speak to it when the time
Oh,
comes.
right.
Wait for Councillor
Yes.
Mayor to load. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm going to take the report as read. I'm happy to walk through the report if councillors want me to walk through it, but if you've read the report, I'm happy just to respond to questions. I'm in your hands in terms of whether you want an overview. Otherwise, happy to respond to questions.
Any questions of the CEO? Councillor Knox.
I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment, but and I understand the need to extend the area. And I understand the need to extend the area in the short term because it might take longer to get the whole of the city declared a dry zone. But we need to take a lot of care of how far we extend it. Because I would think if you set another kilometre further out and you pick up Copperhouse Court, pick up some other residential areas that have older people in them as well. And in Copperhouse Court's case, there's a park in Hutchins Street. There's a park across the road in Noble Street as well. So they're hemmed in by vacant areas or parks. And I'd hate to see it happen out there because that's a busy area. Lots of our older residents live there. Lots of people visit on a very regular basis as well. So I'd hate to see that picked up in the area. So we need to be very, very mindful of that. I also think that there's one other thing that we need to tackle as well in terms of the antisocial behaviour. And I think we need to encourage our law enforcement officers to take a more active role in policing Westlands. And I don't know how they do it, but policing the bus stop as well at Westlands. Now, I think we're doing really, really well in terms of visitation with caravanners, motorhomes. There's lots and lots of information sources for those people. If you, for example, want to drive to Darwin and you look on their Facebook pages, you will see there's a whole range of places that are recommended that you do not stop at. And there's probably half a dozen of them without me going through them. Some of them are quite big places. Alice Springs is one, Catherine's another, places like Elliott, Wycliffe Wells, Barrow Creek, etc. I would hate to see Whyalla fall back into that sort of category where people would bypass Whyalla rather than stop here. So we need to tackle the drinking, but we need to tackle the antisocial behaviour inside Westlands at the bus stop as well.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Pond.
Yes, I've got a few comments. We've got dry zone and youth crime and antisocial behaviour connected here.
Wait, councillor, sorry, can I just through the mayor? If there's questions, I'm happy to answer questions at this point in time. If you want to make comments, then I think that is part of the debate. So if we can first go with questions, and then we need to get something on the table, and then I think the discussion and debate then should occur.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have picked that up. Yes, questions only at this stage. Then we've got the recommendation and discussion. Deputy Mayor Border.
Happy to move.
Move Deputy Mayor Border the recommendations as published.
Yes, as published, yep.
Councillor Inglis.
I'll second them.
You're seconding.
Yep.
Right. We now have the motion.
Yeah, ask.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Border, would you care to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank the administration and specifically the CEO for preparing such a comprehensive analysis. And I can see that you've looked at it from multiple different angles, which is important in this case. And I urge every resident who will want to share their opinion on this matter to read the report thoroughly, as it clearly outlines the approach and the implications of moving down this path. And secondly, I wish to highlight that the motion specifically notes the need for community consultation, which is why reading the report in advance is so valuable for residents. And the reason that I'm eager to move this motion and see council progress down this path of implementing a citywide dry zone is first and foremost based on over a dozen personal conversations I've had with residents in the western suburbs who wanted their voice heard and represented in this chamber at this time. Their message is crystal clear to me. They want a citywide dry zone to help in addressing this issue. They have said that this alcohol-related antisocial behaviour is creating enormous social disturbance to residents throughout the day and the night. It is socially and physically unhealthy, and in addition to being unsightly with the rubbish that is left behind. And quite frankly, our residents in the western suburbs deserve to be able to walk to the Westland Shopping Centre without fear of alcohol-related antisocial behaviour during the day or night. I've spoken to mums who can't get their kids to sleep because of the verbal noise from alcohol-related arguing in public spaces, despite investing in roller shutters for all her windows. I've spoken with elderly residents who simply do not feel comfortable to ride their gophers to the shops anymore. I've spoken to drivers having to swerve at the last second to avoid unsupervised children and intoxicated people who are unaware of the traffic. And just this morning, I was speaking to an out-of-town investor who expressed concern over similar alcohol-related and antisocial behaviour on the main street. This has to stop, and I believe the implementation of a citywide dry zone is a critical step as part of broader local level service social strategies to curb the antisocial behaviour and improve the community's sense of livability to our western suburbs and our city as a whole. The reasons I believe this approach is ideal is because it's something that's within council's direct control. We obviously have very limited buttons that we can push and levers that we can pull in this regard. By doing so, it empowers local police to act on this behaviour, and it demonstrates our commitment as a council to collaborate with SAPOL and any further initiatives from social services. I also like it because it's non-discriminatory. It affects every resident the same. And perhaps the most important factor to me is that a citywide dry zone sends a clear message to anyone visiting or intending to visit Whyalla that we take the enjoyment and comfort of our community and our visitors seriously. And we will not allow Whyalla to become a soft target for those wishing to gain easy access to alcohol and disrespect our community and our city. To me, this is about protecting the peace and enjoyment of those members of our community who have put up with this issue for a significant period of time. And having said all of that, I'd just like to wrap up my comments by acknowledging a critical point for all of us to realise is that no single act, including the introduction of a citywide dry zone, will completely solve this complex social issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Inglis, did you wish to add to that?
No, I'm pretty much with what Peter said. You know, it's just got to stop, and I don't believe by pushing the boundaries is going to do anybody in favour. It's going to push it out into the back streets, and you know, it's not going to help any of the families or anybody who lives in that area. Obviously it's not a great look for Whyalla, and listen to Councillor Knox before. I've got mates who caravanners, and we are starting to get some unhealthy mentions in places about this is a joint to avoid, and that's not good for anybody because we've worked hard on our tourism stuff, and you know, and this is just an issue that that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with in a sensitive way, but it does need to be dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other councillor wish to make a comment? Councillor Pond.
I can. Absolutely agree. Well said. I think citywide dry zone is definitely our first step, and it's something our community is crying out for at the moment. Not everyone, but definitely quite a few numbers. I would just like to say though, the youth crime and the dry zone absolutely not related, which definitely screams out that we definitely need to advocate for more agencies as well. These are multiple incidences and issues that we need to deal with our community. So we definitely need to be advocates to make sure that those agencies have all the tools in their toolkit to be able to help with these issues. We also need to advocate for SAPOL to make sure that they are fully resourced to be able to implement this citywide dry zone. They are very stretched at the moment. They're going to need more resources, and it is our job to push for that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Simpson.
I was initially in favour of a partial dry zone, from private back or not every back. But the more I thought about it, the more I've read about it, and then looking at the continued consultation, I believe in a city-wide dry zone is the way to go.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments from any members? If not, we have a recommendation, three-part recommendation, which has been moved and seconded. If there is no further discussion,
Just want to, through the mayor, if I may just clarify, given the speakers that have spoken to this matter already, part B looked at the potential of writing to the minister to see whether there would be an option to do an interim or a minor variation to the existing boundary. Given the discussion that's occurred tonight, do you want to proceed with that aspect of the recommendation, or do you want to just leave it as pursuing the citywide dry zone?
mover and seconder.
I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's a case for both. Do I need to speak first and then other people can chime in, or do I need to rule it out or keep it in and then it debates?
Well, technically, it's still in the motion.
Yeah, it's in the motion, so.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'd like to see what people think, but I'll remove that B so that it's just going to a citywide dry zone.
Seconder of the motion, are you happy with that?
Yes, Mayor, I am. Yep.
Probably show of hands if they're okay with that variation.
As the CEO has just said, could I have a show of 2/3 of hands if you're happy with that change? 2/3. I need 2/3 of the hands. I think I can see 2/3 of the hands.
Take it straight out. So thank you, Mayor.
No, thank you, CEO. Right, so with that particular section out, put the motion, those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Do you want?
Carried unanimously. Yes. Right, moving along to 14.2, corporate services ordinary reports, 14.2.1, the monthly budget report for January 2025. And before I call for a mover and seconder, perhaps I refer it to our CEO, who will refer it to our finance manager, if there are any questions. In that case, if there are Councillor Klobuchar.
Just a question regarding purchase of IT equipment. There's a note in there that we purchased for a third party worth $30,000. Can you give us a bit of context on that?
Yes, certainly. So we have a service agreement with Cleve Council where we provide not extensive IT services, but some high level. But we also order equipment for them using our contracts because we get better pricing because they're quite small, and that's fully on charge to that council.
That we're reimbursed? Yeah. Second question, I acknowledge about the hard waste and legal dumping, the increase that we've gained there. What's been done about the enforcement side of things? Because I know it was brought up a few meetings ago about, obviously it seems to be getting worse in terms of rubbish that's being left on the verge. And I was sure that council were going to have compliance officers go out and talk to those people and so on and so forth. So I'm just curious if that's happened and what's going to occur.
I can give it. So I think I know what you would, the particulars you're talking about. So there was a new process put in place with work between the operations team and the compliance team, sort of from a reporting and then a follow-up perspective. So that has been happening in terms of, and I think we showed council the flow through where obviously there's different things that can happen, whether it's a SA housing property and the workflow for that, as well as others where they're given time to remove the offending rubbish. And then if it doesn't get removed in time or a hard waste pickup is not correctly organised, then that's when we move down the path of issuing fines. And that has been occurring. And we know there was a question from a councillor the other day around a specific incident that happened in the last couple of weeks, and that incident was also followed up, and we're flowing through with infringement on that as well. So there are infringements being issued using that workflow.
So it might just be my perception, but it just appears it's getting worse.
Through the Mayor, and just adding to what the Manager of Finance has provided in response, what we'll do is we'll actually provide a report to come back to Council to provide an update in terms of some of the strategies that have either been put in place or in the process of being put in place to address the various waste streams. So illegal dumping and verge dumping being just one of a number of the challenges that we've got. So for the benefit of all councillors, I think what we'll do is we'll take that question on notice and come back with a report to a future meeting.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Knox.
Just following up on Councillor Kobikar's comment, we've got people that are going up and down streets on a regular basis on mowers, etc. Why can't we set up a mechanism so they report those things to the compliance people and they can then take action on them?
That is the mechanism that was put in place during that.
Councillor Pond.
Yeah, I actually had illegal dumping on my list as well to speak about, so thank you very much. And you've answered all my questions there regarding consequences and are we trying to recover costs. I've got two other things though. The overdue rates, there seems to be quite a lot on there. I did notice that it's year to date for this year, obviously because we haven't finished yet, and every other year is obviously a year total. But is that normal for this time of year, or do we have more residents who are struggling to pay their rates at the moment?
The numbers at the moment are not any higher than to be expected and from previous years. I think we've started probably in the last couple of weeks to see a bit more of a flow through of requests for assistance, which we're processing under our normal policies. But the actual arrears is not no higher or not materially different. You know, it does vary over from month to month and year to year. There's no material difference, but I'm happy to maybe in next month's report I'll provide a bit more context around that, just so because that might be useful for councillors. So I'll look to adjust the report slightly so that you can see that, and then we can
Thank you. Because it was quite a big number, but wasn't sure if it's on track with previous years. And the other one is just regarding the airport deficit. Very good to see that that's getting re-looked at because absolutely the numbers are not going to be anywhere near while prices are quite high. And there was something recorded the other day that for a one-way flight, just over $700. And that's because it was a last-minute flight, which we're all aware of the reasons why some of these prices go right up. But while ever flights are going to be that expensive, the average resident is never going to be able to afford it. So I just want to say fantastic that you're re-looking at that and readjusting predicted outcomes for the airport. Thank you.
Thank you for that observation and comment about the airport and the prices. We will very shortly be looking to engage with Qantas in terms of getting information out to our community on a more timely and regular basis around flight prices. If there are times where individuals are paying quite expensive airline tickets if they're trying to book late and it's on a particular day or time that is particularly busy. Other times of the week when it's less busy, some of the prices that I've seen recently are actually lower than what it was pre-COVID. So we need to get the information into our community, my view, as a community service obligation, that when there are cheap flights that are available, that we make that information readily available to our community, because we as a council and our community at large has got a vested interest in having as many people on planes as we can, because it does have that financial benefit in terms of passenger levies. We also are in ongoing negotiation with Qantas regarding the passenger levies and the need for those to increase, given the gap that exists and has existed for some time. I think there was a meeting again just recently where there is ongoing negotiation, and I emphasise negotiation. It's not just discussion with Qantas about the increase in the passenger levy to address the fact that at the end of the day we've got to try and get closer to covering our costs. So we'll bring a report back to the council on that matter very shortly as well.
That's great, thank you. And getting that information out to the community also shows that we are trying. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. And I was just going to expand on that.
You got this.
I've had discussions with the CEO and our commerce manager, and also with Qantas manager down in Adelaide, that I want him up here at an appropriate time for us to do some specific media, and also for him to explain the situation, because I know they are concerned that a lot of the views out in our community at the moment are old views. When they say it costs so much all the time. I've been doing some research over a period of time looking at their fares, and yes, they are certainly down at the moment. The risk is if you want to go down later today or tomorrow, that's when it might be up. But certainly I want him up here so he can explain to the community. We've got a vested interest, it's our asset out there. We need to get more passengers going both ways, but at the same time, we need to get the story out there. The same with what is the rate of cancellations? What is the rate of delays? My understanding in the past, they've still been low, but there is this perception they're always cancelling, they're always delayed. I want the facts and I want them from him. And that will certainly go out to the community. So, yeah.
Maybe just one additional thing, if I may, Mayor. There has been some sensitivity in the past about council seen as promoting a service provider, whether it's an airline service provider or a engineering company or a new hotel or motel that's established in Whyalla, and particularly around airlines. There's always been this sensitivity, or was significantly when Rex was here, that if Qantas, for example, had a sale, should we promote that that sale? Rex had a sale, should we promote that sale? And what role has council got in terms of promoting a business or a sale that may be on? My sense is that we now need to shift from that conversation and really focus on that community service obligation, that where there is cheaper flights available for our local community to go and visit family and friends, or make an appointment to go see a medical specialist, or whatever the case may be, that they know if they jump online, that day, the next day, or the 1 or 2 days after that, they can get some cheaper airline flights than what they might experience at other times. I'm just putting that out there. If councillors have got a different view, I'm happy to have some further discussion about that. But where there has been some sensitivity in the past, I think we need to look at how do we actually leverage that for the benefit of our community, and ensure that they are availing themselves when the cheaper flights are available.
Thank you, CEO. Does anybody have any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I will call for a mover of the monthly budget report 14.2.1. Councillor Campbell?
Oh, sorry, I was going to second, and I believe the deputy mayor.
Deputy Mayor Border.
I'll move it.
Right. You're moving. Councillor Campbell seconding. We have a motion on the books. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. And we definitely do need new chairs. I keep going down. I'm short enough. You sure?
Yep.
Oh. Sit down like me. Item 14 point. Yeah, I did put it in. 14.2.2, the budget review 2024-25 quarter two. We have a report before us, which I'll take as read. If there are any questions before I call for a mover. Councillor Simpson.
Question, page 74. I'd like the Director of Finance to have a look at that. Bennett Oval scoreboard, $35,000. $25,000 paid by grant. $40,000 paid from renewal funds. Remainder will fund $100,000 project, which is an estimated cost. I don't understand that at all.
Yep, so I can explain it. Sorry, so we've got a $25,000 grant towards that project, and council already had $40,000 built into our renewal program because that scoreboard was end of life.
And how much is the scoreboard?
The scoreboard is 100,000. So what we're saying is we need the remainder.
Explain that there's a total cost of the scoreboard. That's why I do get lost.
Yep.
We're a bit simple. I'll say lost.
You're happy now? No, you've got another one.
Page 78. The state we have income received from the Whyalla Football League of $30,000 for Bennett Oval. The Bennett Oval lease. What do we get for Memorial Oval and Jubilee Park, if I may ask?
To take that on notice to give you the exact amount, but we've got Memorial Oval has a license rather than a lease for specific use, and I think we probably get the amount is less than $5,000 per year for the use of Memorial Oval. And at the moment, there are Jubilee. I'll definitely have to take on notice. I don't have that into my head, but it's not a huge amount.
And last but not least, it says a reduction of income from rental properties to staff. I don't know what that means either.
Yeah. So we had a couple over the last few years. There was especially when rental properties were very hard to get, and we had some staff that had relocated to Whyalla to work. We took some strategic opportunities to take out some leases on some properties, and then we were on charging those leases to the staff. So there was no cost to council. It was just a flow through. As they had ended over the last couple of years, we've not renewed those leases, and so they have now disappeared. So basically the income and the expenditure side are just coming out of the budget.
Just real
That's
quick.
it, Councillor. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Border.
And that's why it's not green or blue or red. It's because it's money in, money out.
If it's black in the main section of the attachment, then it's just it offsets somewhere. Yep.
I did have another quick question. I think this is the right place to suggest that. It's just a comment really, but as I read through the finances, and there's lots of pluses and minuses, obviously, sort of budget is, but it appears that council are improving the stability, and I'm saying this cautiously, but the previously deemed potentially unsustainable status that SCOSA had us at, as I look at all those summaries of the numbers, that we are tracking well to move beyond that category over the next 2 to 3 years. I think it was 26, 27 to restore the stability that SCOSA has sort of essentially marked us down on. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so I think that is a good observation. So we haven't had a chance yet to have a joint workshop between council and our audit committee, but what meeting of the audit committee in December, and at that meeting we had a bit of a discussion exactly around that, around probably where our financial position is at and where it's headed, but also some of our probably our key item at the moment is budget management within each financial year. So our projections are looking much better. And if we can hit those projections over the next couple of years, I think that we're well on our way to coming out of that sort of financially unsustainable or potentially financially unsustainable claim. But an important part of that is what we've struggled to do over the last couple of financial years is actually finish the year in line with our adopted budget. And part of that has been that we've had very little budget capacity. and lots of stuff happening. And that's honestly why it's been hard to manage. What I think we've done well over the last couple of years is build in a little bit of capacity, and we discussed this with the audit committee around, that we have actually built not massive amounts, but a little bit of capacity to deal with the unknowns and the things that are changing. And the other bit that we really need to implement over the next couple of years is just being very disciplined with our budgets and what we include, but I think that yes, that when you look at this budget review, and I've tried to, I think I put that in the report as well, that it, compared to the last couple of mid-year budget reviews that we've done, it's looking much better. We're really on track with our original adopted budget. If you take out the change to the airport income projections, which I don't think you can really offset for that. And we did note that when we adopted the budget that we'd probably gone a little bit high on our projected passenger numbers. But if you take that item out, we're basically on sort of track with our original budget. And I think even with the stuff that's happening week to week and month to month at the moment, we do have the ability to manage for the rest of the year. So yes, I would say it's a long answer to that our financial health is looking much better, and our capacity to deal with the things that are happening. Yeah,
which is very good to hear because as we all know, the struggle of more expenses and no growth in the income, I think that's an unsung, not hero necessarily, but it's a great step forward. It's not a very visible thing, but it's obviously was highlighted through the ESCO's report. So I think that is worth putting some attention on as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further questions? Otherwise, we have a report, two-part recommendation with Councillor Knox.
Moving the recommendation.
And Councillor Inglis.
Second the recommendations.
Thank you. We have a motion. Moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.3, annual review of confidential orders.
I've got a conflict in items 32, 40 and 59 in this report.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes. What is your
conflict? The first one, 32, is a variation to the lease of the transfer station. The second one's a transfer station fees and charges increase, and 59 is improved.
And what do you propose to do, Councillor?
I'll leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Simpson.
I have two conflicts. Item 80, I have great-grandchildren attending Sunrise School. There's a conflict there. And item 117 and 118, I have relatives who have put in for lease, or who had put in for lease of the Bolshoi Kappa. And I'll stay here for that.
And what you're sorry, and your proposal? You'll stay.
Yeah. I'll stay here.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, the way forward, CEO, I need a little bit of advice here.
Yes.
Go through them individually, or
no, there's way too many mayors to go
yes,
through
that's what I
individually.
thought.
So, given that Councillor Inglis has got a conflict of interest in relation to 32, we can do items from 1 to 31 on block. So I'm going to just read through these. So what I suggest is that we get someone to move and second these on block items, then we'll deal with the exceptions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. We then have 33 to 39 as the next on block. So if we can grab these details as Michelle's got it. We then get to the next item that Councillor Inglis has got a conflict with. Then we can do 41 through to 48. Why can't we go further? Looking. That should be 58. All right, 58. To the next item. So you change that on the screen. Thank you. Then we go from 60 through to 8. No. Councillors staying in their room for that. Through to, what have we got? 80, 117, through to 116. No, because councillor's staying in there for that one as well. So we can actually go all the way through to 133 as the last block. Sorry, my apologies. Yep. Yep. Right there, just we'll make sure we've got that all on the screen. So as per the reports, we will seek a resolution A, which is that council notes the review, and then we'll ask for council to move on block the following items at number 2, whilst Councillor Inglis is in the room, and then we'll deal with the balance when Councillor Inglis is out of the room. Is that clear for everyone? Thank you.
So at this stage, I call for somebody to move item 1 of that recommendation. Councillor Westerman, seconded Councillor Klobuchar. If I'm correct, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Maybe for simplicity, we'll say 2A, which is to approve the following
Yes.
on block. Yep, so after Appendix A, on block the following. Just get your list as per schedule.
Would somebody care to move all of them? All of them on block. So although it's, yeah, we only want the one.
Yep, and
one for the whole lot.
One for the whole lot.
No, for the whole lot, for all of them. Yeah.
I have a question on item 44.
Okay, the question?
It says to retain. I believe the information on that has already been publicised in the advertising. So I just wonder why we're retaining it in confidence. I'll bow down to people who know better than me.
It's I'm happy to review, but when I reviewed that, I believe it actually contains information about individual owners that could be used to identify them. So while the process and the property addresses are public items, some of the other information contained within the report there, I'd have to review that. Yeah.
Just so for the benefit of all councillors, so at this point in time, the recommendation is that we retain it because there was additional information in the report that we believe should be kept in confidence. If that's the only item of exception, I'd suggest that in the interest of good governance, that we do retain it and we can do some further work offline to bring that back to councillors if we think there's merit in revisiting that one. But for tonight, we retain it.
I'm moving.
Councillor Klobuchar.
Moving.
You're moving. Would somebody care to second Councillor Knox? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor. I have a quick question.
Yes.
As Councillor Simpson has mentioned about Sunrise School, I have children that go to Sunrise School. Do I need to leave for that one?
That's through the Mayor. Council has already just dealt with that matter with the resolution that just went through. If you wanted to record a declaration, we can put that in the minutes.
Yes, please.
If just for the benefit of the minutes, if you can just record what the conflict of interest is.
Yes, that I have children that go to Sunrise School.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that. Yep.
balance.
Could I have a mover and a seconder for the balance, please? Councillor Campbell moved, Councillor Westerman seconded. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Help Councillor English get his steps up.
As a gap fuel, we could have actually done it item by item and actually got him to go out multiple times to get more steps up.
He might take it out on me then. All right. I think it's far away. 14.2.4, the mid-year report 2024-25. Very detailed report. I'll refer that to CEO. If anybody has any questions, I'm sure he will refer it.
Yes, through the Mayor, happy to take questions in the first instance.
Deputy Mayor Border.
I have a comment, really, and it's a bit of praise, but I see there on page 119 that providing leadership and in effect to attract state and federal funds. And the comment there is recent feedback from representatives of both the state and federal government suggests that council is doing very well in this area and that the other levels of government, being state and federal, are very keen to collaborate with council on revitalising the city. And the comment that I would like to make about that is that it appears that the approach that both the Mayor and administration leadership have taken over the last 2 years, and I'm assuming prior as well, is proving to be enormously beneficial to the broader community, to the tune of recently that $40 million that's coming into the community, which will go a long way to setting up Whyalla for a bright future. I just wanted to point that out because I think that's an important observation given the recent pressure that's been put on our local leadership. And so I just wanted to highlight that to keep up the good work.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, where was I? Right, any further comments? Questions? If not, we have a recommendation that we receive the mid-year report. Somebody care to move that way? Moved Councillor Campbell, seconded Councillor Pond. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2.5, CEO remuneration. CEO.
Just confirming I'll leave the meeting during this item due to my conflict of interest in relation to it. Thanks.
Now, leading into this recommendation, I'm going to raise something I haven't had a chance to chat with Sue. My main concern with the recommendation is that if we're to provide feedback as a body, we have not addressed that. How do we proceed here? Because I feel that we don't have the information as a group if we are to provide further feedback. Does that require a workshop or a briefing to address what's in this as against what we submitted initially? Because I don't see how we can provide feedback based on that.
I'm happy to provide some
Yeah.
initial comments on that. The thinking behind the report was, so attached to the report are two annexes. So one of them is relating to the attraction and retention considerations. So that's been written by Sue, and that's meant to align to the things that were submitted to council previously that it's felt are not picked up within the model that they've proposed. So that's one bit of feedback, I guess, that we've prepared. And then the other feedback is new that I've undertaken, but that's more around just some commentary on the analytics of the model itself that they've put together, which is probably council may not have that much concern around that. I just thought that was, it's probably more useful around just getting a model that, seems to make sense and stuff. So the recommendations as they're written are to provide those two bits of feedback to the LGA so they can make a sector-wide, as part of their sector-wide submission to the tribunal, because that's what they're preparing, and also put that directly to the tribunal as our feedback. However, noting your comments, Ned, obviously the recommendation could be changed that, further feedback, if elected members don't actually agree with the feedback that's been put in the report and proposed to be given, it could certainly be changed, noting that like most things from in this regard, the timeframes are quite short, being 12th of March, I believe, is the expiry date. So yeah, that's the background.
I guess that's what I was seeking, the clarification that what is in there is we turn back into the feedback. Thank you. Does anybody else have any further questions which I can refer to either Grant or Lou? Councillor Knox.
I've got a couple of questions. The first one is that we're paying 3.3% above the recommended range. I'm just curious to know what the total amount for the CEO's salary is made up of. I assume it's salary, the house, superannuation and the car. I'd like to see sort of what those values are. And I'd also like to ask the question as to whether the amount includes the additional week's annual leave.
Yep. So that's the breakdown is direct salary, superannuation. I obviously didn't attach it. We didn't attach it to the report. So that's I do have that table. We've prepared it for the tribunal because they're interested in that as well. So it's the direct salary and super. There's a value put on the extra week of leave. There's the value of the car and the FBT that's payable in relation to that. And then there's a value of the accommodation and the FBT.
That's basically what I said, but what I was asking for, what are the amounts that make those things up?
Yep. I mean, I can read them out if you want. I do have them. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Need 2 seconds. They are public information, so give me 2 seconds.
Or if not, just send them out to us.
If you want them,
yeah,
I can circulate that.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other part of the question is on page 134, and I haven't got it up on my screen, but we're talking about the CEO's banding was based on regional and remote. And I'm just curious to know what would we define as regional and remote? I could think of Whyalla as being regional, but I couldn't think of Whyalla as being remote. So I would hope that we're not arguing to the tribunal that they should be increased because we're remote, because I don't think we are remote. I'd say that councils like Elliston, West Coast councils, Cooper Pedy, etc., maybe Roxby Downs are remote, but I wouldn't say Whyalla is remote.
Just a little bit of context in terms of remote. So basically, we are at a slight disadvantage, in one regard, relating to FBT. So almost all councils in South Australia, anywhere east of us, south of us, north of us is considered remote. So Franklin Harbour is considered remote. The only three councils in this region that aren't remote are Whyalla, Port Augusta and Port Pirie. And it's a bit of a quirk of what our population, those definitions were put in place in the 1970s by the ATO, and they've never changed. So they were based on Whyalla's population in the 1970s, is why we're not considered remote, and actually why Port Augusta and Port Pirie are not considered remote because of us. And the only thing it actually mainly impacts is that if we provide an accommodation benefit to an employee, such as CEO, we pay FBT on it, whereas every other council on the Eyre Peninsula does not pay that. And so that could be considered a bit of a disadvantage, just as we're a bit of an outlier.
Thank you, Grant. You happy with that, Councillor Knox? Right. Any further comments or questions before I seek a mover of the recommendation? In that case, would somebody care to move the recommendation, please? Moved Councillor Simpson, seconded Councillor Westerman. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. While we're calling the CEO back in, 14.2.6, procurement process for Whyalla Economic Precinct Stimulus Program. Obviously, in the first instance, I'll refer to the CEO. Councillor Knox.
I've just got a question. Page 176, paragraph 2, it states we've decided to focus the work on Civic Park. I got a bit lost there. What's proposed at Civic Park?
Through the Mayor, I'll defer that to Director of City Growth.
When we proposed the economic stimulus project, we talked about which precincts we'd focus the effort on, and both the foreshore and the Civic Park was what we included in that proposition. It mainly relates to public realm furniture uplift, entry to the park, toilets, shelters, landscaping, depending on how we go with the project, sound show, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Border.
The questions, happy to move it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have a mover. Would somebody care to second? Councillor Knox?
Yep.
Moved and second. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.3, City Growth Ordinary Reports. 14.3.1, Community Grants. Initially, I'll refer to the CEO if anybody has any questions. Councillor Knox.
I'm moving it.
I need to leave.
Sorry?
I need to leave. I had my light on. I haven't got the magic buzzer. Doesn't go to the top. Declaring the conflict.
Oh, right.
As the chairperson of the newly appointed chairperson of Plaza Youth, and also the vice president of Little Athletics.
And what do you propose to do, Councillor?
I'm leaving the room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody else declaring a conflict, or you all want to have something to say?
You two options of that.
All right.
We'll do two options of that.
Councillor Knox.
I'm moving it.
You're moving. Deputy Mayor Border.
Seconding.
You're seconding.
I have a question.
Of course. Yes, Councillor.
Of course. The panel who look at these submissions aren't doing the job. If you read those applications, I have not filled in. And I don't mean to be picky, I should have printed them out. But if you look, ask questions, and those 3 or 4 pages not filled out at all. Comment.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson.
I think the councillor was questioning whether we had all of the information needed for the panel to assess the merits of these community grant applications, and noted that some of the information appeared to be missing in the paperwork. So just wanted to ascertain how the panel come to the conclusion that these were appropriate recipients of community grants.
Yep. So through the Mayor, every application that is put before us, we make phone calls and have conversations with the applicants. I have raised with most of the applicants, well, a couple of the applicants, that the standard was probably not high enough for me on some of the information. So I suppose that's why I always elaborate a little bit further in the body of the report, to give you a little bit more information in there. We are doing some benchmarking against some other councils of our size, and smaller and larger also. And we're looking at a different process for community grants. We're actually looking at going through a electronic process of submission where people cannot submit without all the information required. So it might look like the copies you have don't have all the information, But I can say to you that I've gone back to every single one of the applicants and asked for further information.
Thank you for that. I don't doubt you haven't done due diligence. But I do wonder why these people are making applications and not filling the form correctly.
Agreed.
Thank you, councillor, and thank you for the explanation. We have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. If there are no further comments or questions, I'll put that motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you. Item 14.4, City Infrastructure Ordinary Reports. There are nil. Item 15, Information Decision Reports. 15.1, Council Members. 15.1.1, the Mayor's List of Engagements. I just want to, add a bit of explanation in that when I prepare my list of engagements, it's primarily if I've attended an event, meetings or whatever. I'd hate you to think that that's all the Mayor is doing. I can assure you that there is a lot of paperwork, correspondence to attend to. I just wanted to elaborate that that's not just the list. Having said that, if there are no questions, I'm happy.
Question.
No
Are
questions.
you trying to be a media expert, are you?
All right. Losing myself. Would somebody care to move the recommendation that we received tonight? Councillor Knox?
I'm going to prepare to move it, but in doing so, I'd like to commend you for all the work that you've done lately and in difficult circumstances at time as well. It can't have been easy, so thank you for everything you've done.
No. Thank you, councillor. That wasn't the purpose of me saying that, but thank you. Yeah, you'll get me. You'll ruin the image of grumpy Mayor Phil. Thank you. Right, I need a seconder. Deputy Mayor Porter, thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, against, thank you all. Item 15.2, Corporate Services City Growth. 15.2.1, the monthly information report for February. Very detailed report. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll refer to the CEO in the first instance. Councillor Knox.
Got a couple of comments and questions. Page 213, the reference to George Gittos. George Gittos came here in my time as CEO, and if my memory serves me correctly, he was sponsored by BHP with some money from council and some money from Country Arts SA, and he produced a number of really, really good quality drawings. A very good artist, and there's some value in those drawings as well. I'm just wondering why they're actually at the Middleback Theatre and why aren't they in council's ownership? Because that's where they were supposed to come to council. And I think if we're going to inquire about that, maybe we should also inquire about whether they have any other art prize winners that belong to council that should come back to council one day. And the reason I'm pushing that is there was one work of art out there that at one stage would have been worth a bit of money, but it got destroyed by one of the managers of the theatre deliberately.
Tutor. Tutor.
I'm not going to go any further.
I will take that.
Yeah, take that on notice. Thank you, councillor.
And I've still got a couple of questions.
Yep.
And this is a great report. I really love this reporting. But on page 224, the Recreation Centre, we've got stats for 2024-25, but no previous year to compare against it. So we don't really know how the centre is going, whether numbers are up or whether numbers are down. So I think all of these things, and we're getting better at it, we should have the previous year's periods in so that we can make those comparisons. And I would assume that the Rec Centre has a sort of a standard reporting system they put into council on a monthly or quarterly basis. That's correct. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And as a final comment, artificial intelligence is well and truly alive in Whyalla. When you can get the mayor photograph with Santa Claus, well done.
Moving on.
And that's not insulting your intelligence either, Your Worship.
Well, I can say I asked artificial intelligence to tell me a bit about me, and I learned a hell of a lot that I didn't think I knew. Look, you're losing me completely now. Deputy Mayor Border.
It's a quick question, and it is an amazing report each month to see all the activity that all the different departments are doing. So I hate to be picky, but the customer service requests, is there any update on the replies going to the customer? So where they've logged the request, personally, I still find it intermittent and sometimes non-existent. And I know that that's a common feeling amongst the community as well, that they'll put a request through, they'll use the My Local app, and the work might get done, and often it is getting done, but they're not getting the confirmation that it's being done until they see it physically.
I'm not in a position to answer that, but I can take it on notice.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If there are no further questions or comments, we have a recommendation. Would somebody care to move that? Deputy Mayor Border?
Moving.
Seconded Councillor Pond.
Yes.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 16, notices of motion, there are nil. 17, questions on notice, there are nil. Item 18, questions without notice. Do we have any questions without notice? Councillor Inglis.
Just getting back to our compliance officers and do we actually have anybody full-time in this role, or is it a shared role, or how does it operate?
Yep. Through the Mayor, we have a number of regulatory services officers that do multiple regulatory functions, so parking control, dog and animal or animal management control, legal littering, etc., etc. So we don't have a designated resource that solely focuses on parking control.
I'm of the view, and I might do something about this next meeting, that we probably need to have somebody full-time in this role, because I'm back looking after domestic collections, and I've been riding around the boys in the trucks a little bit, just touching base with them again. And there is some absolute shit show streets going on in this town, and if we're not careful, it's just going to get out of control. I'd suggest it's probably out of control now. The amount of stuff that's in people's front yards, over fences, and it's not just one or two or three or five streets. I can name you 15 to 20 streets that, I think the time's near where we need a full-time compliance officer, regulatory officer who does nothing else, that gets around and people park where they like.
Start knocking on doors.
Start knocking on doors and start holding some of these people to account, because if we're not careful, it's going to get away and we are never going to get it back.
If I may, just through the Mayor, I just want to clarify, because you asked the question first about parking control, but then you talked about illegal waste.
Well,
and
just control all of that.
Yeah.
Whether that can come under whether that comes under the same umbrella or there's different people's doing it, but it just seems to me that it's just getting away from us. And like I said, it's going to get away, and we're never going to be able to get it back if we're not careful.
Yeah.
Because it'll become the norm.
Yeah. So just adding to my previous response, we currently have 2 point something FTE, 2.1, 2.3 FTE in that order. So we've got a number of regulatory services staff, but as I said, they don't dedicate themselves to one matter or another. They cover all regulatory requirements. The size of our city and the challenge that we've got when you add legal dumping, parking control, animal and management control, etc., there could be a business case put forward that we potentially need to increase our resource, to increase our service level in terms of regulatory and compliance activities. And that is something that council can certainly consider through the budget discussions and budget prioritisation.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll do some work on that, because, like I said, it's just getting away from us at 100 mile an hour.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Knox.
I've got a couple of quick ones. The first one is the money collected from the hard waste collection that goes to the state government. Is that still being used for sand replenishment on the metropolitan beaches?
The waste levy, so that's waste that goes over any weighbridge, the landfill.
Yep.
I think the state government would, and the landscapes levy, they place it in general revenue with a few particular allocations. I think it would most definitely still be contributing to the Adelaide Coastal Sand Replenishment Project.
Yep, thank you. The next question is about the RDA. What, if any, role has the RDA played in helping us in the situation that we currently find ourselves in regard to GFG?
Through the Mayor, I'll provide an initial response, but yeah, in starting my initial response, the RDA is actually due to come back and provide an update or status report to Council, so that will be happening very shortly. But the RDA has been contributing to the local sessions that have been held in terms of displaced workers, in terms of providing services and support to those workers, in terms of providing intel to and intelligence data information to both the state governments and the federal governments to inform the responses by those respective agencies. Anything else top of mind? I think there's those sorts of activities. They certainly are not the lead in some of that work, and it is a collaborative contribution from many. But what I'll do is I'll make sure that the RDA comes and provides that formal status report before or at the next council meeting, so that you can get that information firsthand from them.
Thank you, Councillor Knox. Councillor Pond.
Yes, I've got a couple. First of all, I was just wondering if council is still going ahead with the street sign renewal program. There's a lot of street signs already sitting at depot. Just wondering if that is still going in place, and if so, when?
Yep. I'll defer that one to Colin, our operations manager.
Thanks, Councillor, for the question. So when our maintenance team has time, yes, but that major project was put on hold. We're looking at that as part of the stimulus package going forward, because, yep, we need to get it done.
Lovely, thank you. My second one relates to, I've just received council's second gas bill that came to my address. Sorry, I did open it automatically. I was on automatic pilot when I opened it. I have a couple of questions regarding it. Just had a minor heart attack when I saw the price of it. Just wondering if these gas bills relate to one site, multiple sites, if so, which sites? Because they do seem very high and it's only for 1 month.
I'll defer to the finance manager.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it, but if it's very high, I would imagine it's the Leisure Centre, because the Leisure Centre has a very high gas bill because of the heating element there. But yeah, I'm happy to
maybe bring that back to us when you've had a look at it. And yeah. But like I said, that is the second one that I've received. So just wondering if I could please get that rectified, that I please don't get your bills anymore. I'm not paying it. And my third question was around the leases and licenses. We've been talking for quite a few years about getting a process put in place for consistency. Just wondering where we are with that process.
Yes, through the Mayor, we have been progressively working through the different aspects associated with that. The most recent aspect that we work through is to review the lease fees that are being charged to bring them in line with more contemporary and appropriate quantums in terms of the value. We've had that independently researched and benchmarked, and that report, I think we actually said in a different forum we'd try to bring that to this meeting, but we've not achieved this meeting. For the benefit of councillors, Kathy's been off sick for a week or two, and that's one of the things that I know that she had on her agenda. So we'll look to bring that back to the month of March. What I'll also foreshadow is that at the March meeting, we'll also be bringing a report regarding Tandera, which will potentially be the first lease that we look at the quantum of the lease fee in the context of that feedback that we've got. So very soon you'll get some more information on that item.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you all for the questions. Item 18, no, we've had that. Item 19, motions without notice. Councillor Pond.
Yes, the mayor and myself attended a function at the airport at the end of last year. And I was just wondering, just looking for a bit of guidance for wording on this. So I'll explain the situation first. The tinting on the windows was only partly done. The temperature difference between moving through the sections of the airport were significant. Due to that, 3/4 of the seating that's available when it's a hot day and the sun's coming through there is unattainable. Also, it is in direct line of the cafe, which is affecting food storage. So I would like to put a motion forward and seeking guidance on the wording here of what we can do to make sure that the rest of that window is tinted and will also significantly bring down electricity bills.
Can I just comment on that? I actually had words with Kathy, who was looking into it, so perhaps we could call for an update from her as to the progress. I had quite lengthy discussions.
So put that on hold until we get.
That's up to you, but I had word with her and she was going to look into it.
Yeah, I think instead of seeking a motion at this point in time, if we can take that on notice and if noting that if we do have expenditure that we need to incur to address that, that will also have budget considerations, and very shortly we'll be talking to council about the budget. So ultimately that's where we'll end up having to consider that matter. So if you're happy for us to take that on notice as opposed to a formal motion at this point in time, we'll provide that information back to councillors through the budget process, what rectification is required.
Absolutely, yeah. I just see it as a very significant issue that we do need to fix. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any further motions without notice? Thank you. Item 20, we are about to go into consideration of confidential items. So would somebody care to move that we adjourn the meeting? Presume we can have, yes? You wish to go continue into confidential, or would you like to adjourn first up? Continue? Oh, more than happy to do that. So at this juncture, we have to say good night to our gallery and thank you very much for attending.
CEOs, may I just leave for a short comfort break?
Somebody care to move? We go into confidential, please. Moved Councillor Simpson, seconded Councillor Klobuchar. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.